Welcome to a brand new episode of Part of the Problem. I'm Dave Smith. He's Robbie the Fire Bernstein. How you feeling today, Rob?
I'm doing swell. How are you, my friend?
Very good. I cannot complain. There's a lot going on, a lot for us to talk about. And, you know, one of my favorite things in this world is talking shit with you, Rob. So lucky that I get to do this for a living. So Donald Trump gave a well, what was it? I guess Politico gave him some type of award. They gave him like it was like a person of Europe, the most consequential person in Europe, like of the year or something like that. I don't exactly even understand this. Is it the European branch of Politico recognized Donald Trump? And so then, of course, because of this, he agreed to sit down and do an interview with them. It's just such a Trump moment, of course. Was that, do you know the details on that, Rob? What was it?
I did not realize that this was affiliated with an award, but honestly, that's offensive to Trump to just say best and most influential of Europe. It's of everywhere.
Well, it wasn't, I'm trying to,
that sounds more like a diss than an award.
It was I'm trying to see.
It's like calling Donald Trump the pretty good at something, and he's like, "No, best."
Sorry, it's okay. Politico names Donald Trump the most powerful person in Europe, and I guess this interview was. I don't even know what was it. It was their European wing of Politico or something, but the interview was largely centered around Europe. That was like a big part of it. And so anyway, you know, it's just. It's Donald Trump doing another long sit-down interview. Say whatever you will about Donald Trump, right? This has always been true and has been one of the keys to his political success. But he gives access. Now, he gives this access almost, exclusively to the corporate media, except for campaign time in 2024, which I, kind of almost want to get into that a little bit at some point. But so, Donald Trump, but look, unlike people like Joe Biden or something like that, like Donald Trump does interviews, he does press conferences, he talks a lot. And he was always like this. This was, in fact, one of the big advantages that he had in his entire political career, which is the last 10 years or so, was that politicians, with very few exceptions, like very, very few exceptions, politicians are almost always very guarded because they are professional liars, and when you're a professional liar, you think about things like, who's the interviewer? What's the situation? What are the agreed upon questions? What are this? Because you're always at risk of being exposed for your lie. Like Kamala Harris, the reason why it's such a thing, there's so many deliberations about doing Joe Rogan's podcast, is because the entire goddamn concern is like, you could get exposed on this. Like people might find. Now, Donald Trump, on the other hand, however you feel about him, he believes all his own bullshit. So like, he doesn't see any risk of getting exposed. He's like, I don't got to hide. I'm right about everything. I'm the smartest guy who's ever lived. So like, anyway, he'll do these things. So you get a lot of them with Donald Trump. And of course, Donald Trump has been is he the most influential person in Europe? He's the most influential person in the world over the last 10 years with no one in second place. And so you see this guy a lot. He's the most influential, most important person. And I don't know, Rob, tell me if you had any of this, but I guess I'm just at a point with Donald Trump. And I think a lot of people feel this way, but I'm just so over it. I'm just over his whole thing, his shtick, his bullshit, his narcissism, it's just getting less and less entertaining and more embarrassing. I don't know. That's just how I feel.
I watched the interview, and I walked away that apparently we have the greatest economy ever. Yeah. And it was just because Marjorie Taylor Greene was low IQ, and she couldn't process how amazing our economy was and what he's doing for the American people. So I feel good again. I just needed to hear it from Donald Trump's mouth that it's the greatest economy of all time. And now I'm spending money again, actually.
Yeah, it's right. Exactly. I realized it was just me being stupid the whole time. Then just watch, just like his braggadocious like thing with every single. It's just, I don't know. Now I will say, by the way, it wasn't this. I'm not trying to say like this interview wasn't like a disaster There were bad moments in it, but it wasn't like, we covered, what was it, last month? I can't even remember who we gave the interview to, but was it 60 Minutes? We had the disastrous one where it almost felt like, oh my God, this is like, like almost felt like the speech was, this interview was the end of Trumpism. And he said the thing about how we need the other workers and our university system would be taken down if we were to not do, it was just terrible. It wasn't quite that bad. And he still said some good things. He said some good things on Ukraine. He said some good things about America's relationship with Europe in general and being America first. But it's just like, I guess at a certain point, you're just like, dude, deliver on something, man. Like you just got to deliver on this. It's just hearing you just kind of have a couple of lines where you throw some red meat to the base just ain't doing nothing for me anymore. And
he's delivering a farmer bailout to farm conglomerates because they lost so much money in his tariffs. And so now he's borrowing from a supposed future tariff revenue so that he can make good on all the lost funds from the soybeans, which I think the only reason we grow soybeans was because of earlier government policies to turn poison into a food. But we were able to sucker the Chinese on buying it, and then Donald Trump blew that up. So now he has to make large payments to massive farms.
Yeah. And like, I know there's all these Trump supporters out there who they'll be like, come on, Dave, you're like so hard on Donald Trump. But like, did you hear what Rob just said? What am I supposed to do with information like that and not go, oh yeah, this is retarded? Just absolutely just economic illiteracy to the nth degree. It's just all stupid. That is not getting us ahead at all. It's just, there's just a lot of that. And it's impossible. I think honestly, what's going on, broadly speaking, with Donald Trump at this point is that you're almost like amongst the say the commentators who were like supported Donald Trump in 2024 or the podcasters or whoever. You're just seeing who is willing to like degrade themselves to keep finding a way to defend this shit. And then you just see who are like the ones with integrity who just go, yeah, dude, this isn't at all what he fucking ran on. And this is bullshit. This isn't at all what we stand for, what we want to see happen. It's an interesting litmus test. Anyway, there were some, I thought, some pretty relevant parts of the interview. Let's start with the Ukraine clip. Excuse me.
COVID.
Yeah, there you go. It's COVID. Better lock down the country. Let's follow the science. Let's do the Ukraine clip first. Also, by the way, before we play this, if you're in the live chat, which you can only be in if you sign up over at partoftheproblem.com, feel free to post some questions and we'll get to them if we got any time. All right, let's play.
Right now is in the stronger negotiating position.
Well, there can be no question about it. It's Russia. It's a much bigger country. It's a war that should have never happened. Frankly, it wouldn't have happened if I were president, and it didn't happen for 4 years. I watched that taking place, and I said, wow, they're going to cause some problems here. And it started, and it could have evolved into World War III, frankly. I think it's probably not going to be happening now. I think if I weren't president, you could have had World War III. I think you would have had a much bigger problem than you have right now. But right now, it's a big problem. It's a big problem for Europe, and they're not handling it well.
Can you just pause it for a second? Like, even with that, it's just how everything, I mean, it's like, it's a fucking, he's a cartoon character. And again, like I've said this so many times before, Rob, right? But like, he's this cartoon character, but when he's attacking all the bad guys and driving all the bad guys crazy, it's so easy to fall in love with that cartoon character. Because like, yeah, he's our weapon that gets to them the way nothing else can. But once that's over, it's like everything, dude, everything has to be seen through the prism of protecting his ego. It's all it is. He's so clearly like only motivated by that, or so motivated by that it eclipses all other motivations. Like right away, what is the through line here? about, you get asked whether they should be having elections in Ukraine. And okay, he gives a good answer on that. Like, yeah, they should or whatever. But then immediately it's like, what do you have to know? That the war never would have happened without me, that I was sitting back watching it the whole time, knew exactly what was going to happen, totally would have avoided it. Everything would have been, I knew it was all Biden's fault, could have had World War III, and it would be much worse right now if it wasn't me in here. So like at every single angle, he's just got to let you know that I'm right. Let's just get that out of the way first. I'm right about everything now. Like what? And by the way, he's completely full of shit. This is total made up bullshit. Like, dude, is it possible that Putin would have made a different calculation if Trump was in than if Biden was in? Like, yeah, sure. Like that might be the case. But like, Donald Trump is largely, or at least partially, responsible for leaving the conditions in Ukraine the way they were. Again, as we've talked about on the show a bunch of times, it was Donald Trump who sent the first major weapons package in before Vladimir Putin invaded. There was a civil war going on for Donald Trump's entire first term, and he sent weapons into that, then turned that situation over to Joe Biden, who also bungled it, sure. But then also, Rob, I'm sorry, like the claim that things would be a lot worse now if Biden were in there, like things were basically already where we are right now with Joe Biden. Things would be in exactly the same position with Joe Biden. Maybe we would have sent another weapons package in or something like that. Aside from that, it'd be the same situation. I don't know. Any thoughts?
Yeah, a bunch. First is, a year ago when you took office, you could have just walked away from Ukraine and you could have said, hey, this is Biden's problem. We're not supporting this mess. If we're not sending any more funds over, hey, Ukraine, if you want help negotiating a settlement here, you can. But then there was that nonsense over the mineral deal. I think that just fell apart because I haven't heard anything about it in the last year.
Yeah.
But at this point, listen, Biden might have started this mess. He might have more of the responsibility. But at this point, this has Trump's hands on it because he wasn't able to end it and he wasn't able to make the one winning move, which was we're not supporting this thing anymore. Now,
I'm sorry, just keep the second thing you have in mind there. But that is such a fucking important point, dude. Such a good point. Because I remember saying the same thing about Trump 1, about 45 Trump, that when he got in there, I go, you could fucking pull the troops out of Afghanistan and Iraq right now, because right now, when he first got in there, you can simply say, this was George W. Bush and Barack Obama's war. And that's what I just ran against because the whole country has rejected them, right? So like now we can just pull out and then even if there is any messiness to it, you can go, yeah, dude, that's because these retards invaded these countries and occupied them for 20 years, But then he goes, no, we'll surge in Afghanistan. And then a year later, 2 years later, now it is your mess. Now, if you pull out and it's a mess, like it is on you. So that's such a good point. The time was at the beginning to have nothing to do with this anymore. I'm sorry, just keep going. That was a very good point.
Now, the read I'm getting from the Donald Trump administration is that they actually do want out of this mess, and this is conspiratorial of me, but I think the reason why there's corruption stories lurking out of the Ukraine is to actually pressure Zelensky into ending the war. Now, I don't know if that's actors in Ukraine that are making that agenda or if it's our own administration, but the idea that the close partners and friends of Zelensky are suddenly going down for corruption charges and the New York Times is finally writing about corruption problems in the Ukraine now, I don't think that's coincidental. I think that's the administration or powers that be trying to pressure Zelensky into, hey, there's one way out of this mess, and that's you're giving up territories, you're agreeing not to have a large standing military, and we're calling it a day, and we're going to have elections. And if you want to go the easy way, you can take your money and move to Israel or Miami or wherever you end up. But now the most recent claim from Donald Trump that seems to be that he's ramping up pressure is what we're about to see, of that apparently Zelensky has neither read the agreement and now he's starting to get criticism for the fact that they haven't actually had elections.
Yeah. So here, let's continue playing.
Last night, you said that you weren't sure if President Zelensky was fine with the most recent proposal, that he isn't ready. I was hearing from your advisors around Thanksgiving that they thought this thing might be wrapped up by the end of the holiday, but it's still not done. Is Zelensky responsible for the stalled progress, or what's going on there?
Well, he's got to read the proposal. He hadn't he hasn't read
The
it
most
yet.
recent draft.
That's
yeah.
as of yesterday. And maybe he's read it over the night. It would be nice if he would read it. You know, a lot of people are dying. So it would be really good if he'd read it. His people loved the proposal. They really liked it. His lieutenants, his top people, they liked it. But they said he hasn't read it yet. I think he should find time to read it.
Is it time for Ukraine to hold an election, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. It's been a long time. It's hasn't been doing particularly well. Yeah, I think it's time. I think it's an important time to hold an election. You know, they're using war not to hold an election, but I would think the Ukrainian people would, you know, should have that choice, and maybe Zelensky would win. I don't know who would win, but they haven't had an election in a long time. You know, they talk about a democracy, but it gets to a point where it's not a democracy anymore.
On Sunday, your son, Donald Trump Jr., responded to a reporter's question about whether you will, quote, walk away from Ukraine. And your son said, I think he may. Is that correct?
No, it's not correct, but it's not exactly wrong. We have to, you know, they have to play ball if they don't read agreements, potential agreements. You know, it's not easy with Russia because Russia has the upper hand, and they always did. They're much bigger. They're much stronger in that sense. I give Ukraine a lot of. I give the people of Ukraine and the military of Ukraine tremendous credit for the, you know, bravery and for the fighting and all of that. But, you know, at some point, size will win generally, and this is a massive size. You take a look at the numbers. I mean, the numbers are just crazy. This is not a war that should have happened. This is a war that would have never happened if I were president. It's so sad. Millions of people are dead, many, many soldiers. You know, last month they lost 27,000 soldiers and some people from missiles being launched into Kiev and other places. But what a sad thing for humanity. You know, this doesn't affect us. Our country is no longer paying any money. It was just Biden gave him $350 billion so stupidly. And, you know, if he wouldn't have given it, maybe something else would have happened. But Putin had no respect for Biden, and he had no respect for Zelensky, didn't like Zelensky. They really hate each other. And part of the problem is they hate each other really a lot, you know? And it's very hard for them to try and make a deal. It's harder than most. I settled 8 wars. And this, I would have said, this is the 9th. This would have been the easiest one I would have said, or one of the easier ones. I mean, I said,
yeah, let's just pause it here. I mean, it's so much nothingness mixed in with his goddamn narcissism. It's just like, how many times, like, have any of us not heard you mention that it wouldn't have happened if you were president? You opened with that. You still have to get back to this wouldn't have happened. And then it's just like, again, like the problem with Trump too is like, he just doesn't really, he's just always bluffing, you know, like he just doesn't really know stuff. It's kind of obvious just by listening to him. Like, it's just like, okay, so what did you really, if I could distill that all down, this is where we are, is that you figured out that Kamala Harris, what she figured out, that Russia is a big country and Ukraine's a small country next door to a big country. Okay. They hate each other. Putin and Zelensky? I did not put that together yet. I've been focused on this war for years. I had not put together that there was hostility between the two of them yet. Anyway, I just felt, I don't know. I mean, I just think that there's no, you know, at a certain point, it's like Trump, okay, you want to use all this fucking, you know, you want to constantly talk about how great you are and how it wouldn't have happened if you were there and how it's like, okay, you also promised to end it on day one. So at what point is it like your genius negotiating tactics here are not able to produce nearly the results you claimed you would? By the way, Rob, it's also worth noting, I don't know if you saw this, but Zelensky has come out since this and said no to the deal. And that he straight up said, no, we need all of our territory back. That's the condition. And when he says all of our territory, I do think he still means Crimea too. So like, what do you do there other than fucking walk away from that? Like, what? I mean, if you're at this point and you're saying like we're kind of demanding that you know, surrender some of this territory, and you're saying no, it's like, all right, What are we talking about here? There's I don't know. Any feeling on that?
Yeah, well, it does seem like we're kind of stuck in the same circle where once a month Donald Trump realizes, oh yeah, there's still a war in Ukraine, and then he ADDs, goes back to trying to solve it, and then he forgets about it for a little while. But usually the forgetting about it is that essentially he says, people are dying for no reason, Russia's winning this war, Zelensky, you have no cards and you have no options. What you got to do is we got to play ball. We got to give up the territories, admit that they were lost. You're not getting security guarantees, and we're calling it a war. And then Zelensky seems to go, well, I refuse to do that. Go over to Europe. And then for some reason, Donald Trump's folds, and the war continues going on. And I mean, he's claiming we haven't sent money over there. I don't know how accurate that is. I seem to have thought that we were still supporting them. Maybe it's through arms that supposedly Europe is actually purchasing from us, or returns from mineral agreements. I don't know, but I don't think I don't think we'd still be hearing about this if the U.S. had just walked away and wasn't supporting it. So I was under the impression that we were still supporting the war.
Well, I know there was that one package that went out that went out as a loan, but it was like a loan with no enforcement. And then Trump had supported that one because he said, "Oh, this is smart because it's a loan." So like, yeah. There's I'm sure still tons of American support going on for this thing, either directly or indirectly. Also, like the United States of America seems to have no problem pushing, pressuring, bullying countries into doing the things we want them to do in other ways. And yet, like, are we to believe that we have no leverage to insist that the Europeans stop supporting this thing or something like that, or at least attempt to? Anyway, it's just what can you say? You've got this guy here who is Zelensky, who is, he's painted, he was painted in the corporate media as like a hero for years. He was painted as this like brave warrior, which I do always find, there's something about I guess this is like a libertarian nature of government type of insight, but like I would say even beyond, well, here, let me preface with this actually before I give my libertarian, take on the nature of government. There is such a thing I could imagine as like a legit like wartime leader who really is being brave and is being noble, but it would look like a general, not like a president. Like if you like George Washington or something like that, like if you're being invaded and you're out there in battle with your guys leading the thing, I see there being something noble about that and something brave about that. But like when this is done in the context of a modern day nation state, it's like, people talk about Zelensky like, hey, this guy's just so brave. He just still wants to fight. Even with all odds against him, he still wants to put up a fight to try to maintain his country. And you're like, no, dude, he suspended elections and conscripted an army. He doesn't do anything. He's forcing the young men, or more often, old men at this point, onto the front lines to just go get slaughtered for nothing. He's been doing this now for years. Like the last, what was it? I think it was, goddamn, because I'm up on my Scott Horton reading, but it's just been a little bit wild. But what was it? Their last like offensive where they had any gains is already like over 2 years ago. It's like he's just been forcing people at gunpoint to the front lines to go get slaughtered in mass for nothing, to just keep losing territory slowly. And yet they try to make it out like that's noble. Like that's something like, I don't know, he's protecting himself and forcing the destruction of his own people. It's horrible. And so like, I don't know, what can you say about that at a certain point? Then all right, how could any Western country who's enabling that at a certain point is just engaged in something horribly evil and destructive for everyone. Like maybe you could have come up with some surface level argument at the very beginning, like if you thought there was a chance, but no one thinks like no one actually believes that with America out of the picture and European support alone, he can take back any of this territory. It's just all so obviously insane.
Yeah, the latest effort though with the chatter from Trump of like last time, I don't remember him saying no elections, nor was there the conversation about all of the stolen funds out in the Ukraine. So it seems like on this most recent effort, they're exerting more pressure on Zelensky.
Yeah, no, that's right.
But even here, it sounds like Donald Trump is not ready to just walk away, which in part might just be because he wants his big peace plan to be approved so he could go, I'm a peacemaker, and he doesn't want to admit defeat that over the last year that was actually the best and only card to play because Zelensky just refuses to call it a day. But it seems like at some point that's the inevitability and the decision that has to be made.
Well, I agree with you, Rob. And look, again, there's like it's fairly obvious, like that human beings can see when somebody, what I was saying before, when somebody is as obsessed with talking about themselves and how much they got it right and how much credit they deserve. And I mean, literally throughout the interview, it's like every Trump interview, it's just littered with like this talking about how smart he is, literally saying the words, how smart I am. Like, it's just, and then like, I think it's reasonable to deduce from that like, yeah, this is the major motivating factor for you. And to your point, like, yeah, it does seem like that's actually the motivating factor for Donald Trump. Not that the thing gets solved, that he gets credit for the thing being solved. And like that's a really big problem, man, because like that can lead to making all types of wrong moves that
I don't know why
necessary.
I feel like Zelensky's on the way out. I just don't see Europe's coming back over here and making another pitch to Donald Trump that this war can be won against Russia.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's I think one of the things, right, and this we were I think reporting on this earlier in the year, but there's one of the major things that's changed, I think, in the war over this year is the level of its support from Ukrainians is really collapsing. And so that also, with throwing that element in too, it's like this this is unsustainable in a lot of ways. So like something's got to happen at some point. And yeah, it might be this guy getting pushed out. Maybe the Nazis just end up taking over the country after Zelensky. It's interesting because Scott's written a bunch about this, but like the one of the guys who is like potentially next in line is like one of the real deal neo-Nazis.
Wouldn't that give Putin more of a mandate to continue the war though, and his quest to denazify Ukraine?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. No. It's a whole mess. Yes. No. There's that. Right? Like it obviously makes it worse for
I mean, so this would be the most hilarious thing ever. So we force them to have elections, then a full-fledged Nazi gets elected, and then we have to decide that we're no longer supporting them.
Yeah.
Or listening to Putin talk about how now I have to take over all of Ukraine to successfully denazify it.
Yeah, dude, it's the shit. It's the shit, Scott, and all of us. We're talking about it at the very beginning of the war. It's just the fucking irony. Like the joke writes itself. But like in World War II. We sided with Joseph Stalin when Russia was real deal communists. We sided with the communists, Joseph Stalin, the worst Russian government that ever existed. We sided with them to defeat the Nazis. And now that Russia is no longer communist and they're essentially like corrupt Republicans or something, now we side with the Nazis to defeat the capitalist Russians. It's just like too nutty. And then I know people would give me shit because they'd be like, well, the Nazis are, the whole country isn't a Nazi country. It's only a faction. Like, yeah, okay, fair enough. But like they were a really, really relevant, important faction in this whole goddamn thing. And it was always, right, Rob, was one of the most hilarious things about this this phenomenon, which by the way had been widely reported on for years in Ukraine. I mean, this was just like a very well-known thing. Like it was essentially what's it called? The Chicken Kiev speech from George H.W. Bush. Like, this was his speech in Kiev, where he was talking about don't trade, I forget his exact words, but don't trade a far off tyranny for a domestic, tyranny or something like that. He said it in a better, more eloquently than that. But he was talking about like the radical right-wing Ukrainians. This is Ukraine after all, Rob, like you don't have to be like a World War II expert to know that, like, oh yeah, there was a whole thing there where they were involved. And so you have these factions, they're like direct bloodline from Nazis. It's like they're the grandsons of the Ukrainian Nazis, and maybe great grandsons in some cases. But anyway, so like this was very known. It was widely reported. It was even widely reported in mainstream outlets throughout the Civil War from 2014 up to 2020. But if you remember, Rob, like once it became the thing of the day and Joe Biden's #1 mission, and everyone was changing their Twitter bio to have a Ukrainian flag in it, then it became real embarrassing, where every now and then you just get pictures from the front lines of the war, and you would see all types of like fucking swastika flags and tattoos and all types of like Nazi shit, because there was a whole bunch of real deal Nazis. Okay, let's go to the Venezuela clip of Donald Trump, because this one was atrocious.
Down the border now.
No, he sent a lot of these people. He also sends in a lot of drugs. So we'll see how it all works out.
So
But I can't talk about
So
strategy.
how far would you go to take Maduro out of office?
I don't want to say that, but
But you want to see him out?
his days are numbered.
Can you rule out an American ground invasion?
I don't want to
Venezuela?
rule in or out. I don't talk about it. Why would I talk to you, an extremely unfriendly publication, if you want to call it Politico, that got $8 million from Obama to keep it afloat? Why would I do that? Why would I talk about that to Politico? I mean, I'm doing this because you picked me as a man
Well,
for Europe,
I'm
and I
asking
thought it was
for
appropriate
transparency
thing.
for their American people, because a lot of folks are.
Transparency.
Well, people are
I'll tell
wondering
you, I am
what
the
is.
most transparent politician maybe in the world.
A lot of
okay?
folks are wondering what our goals are.
Can you just pause
in
it
Venezuela.
already?
I don't.
There's a couple things even before, because I think more of the substance of this is coming up. But like, dude, you don't get that anymore. Like after the Epstein thing, you really can't ever say that again. You can't ever say that again. You worked your ass off, and probably still are, to actively cover up the like biggest scandal in politics. And sorry, you don't get to say you're the most transparent. And then on the other thing, Rob, this is kind of what I was getting at before. I guess I could say it now. But there is something where like you kind of go, all right, hey, Donald Trump, you're going to go, why should I tell you that? Politico? Like, you're a hostile, enemy publication. It's like, okay, could you go on a friendly one and tell us? How about just for the people who voted for you then, man? How about like, can you tell any of us what the hell's going on here? And by the way, like, as I was saying before, it's like, there is something about Donald Trump too, because he's such a boomer, which is not his fault. It's just, he is a guy who is 80, that he's just still like kind of enamored with the legacy media, the corporate media in some way. And so, yeah, as soon as they throw him a bone or they pat him on the head, he comes and does their interview, because he still ultimately really wants their approval. Like, ultimately what he wants is for them to go, oh, he did turn out to be brilliant and tremendous. He was right, but like, he did that whole podcast scene to get elected, but he's not going back on any of those shows to talk about it. Like, why not? Is it that crazy? Is it that crazy to go like, why not do the show with a bigger audience and an audience of a lot of people who supported you? I'm just saying, like, if you're going to say, hey, I won't say this to Politico, like, all right, could you tell any of us? Anyway, any
It's the
thoughts,
most
Rob?
4-year-old answer ever. Well, I'm not telling you.
Yeah, you're the commander-in-chief. We're talking about a
you're at an
potential
interview.
war.
I mean, I understand if you want to say, well, listen, I play 4D chess, 5D chess. Sometimes I get up to 7D chess. I don't even realize I'm playing chess, and I need to keep all my options on the table, and we're going to see how we're going to take out Maduro. I'm not ruling out anything. At least that's I don't like that answer, and it still seems like he's flirting with a ground invasion, but I can understand it. How dare you ask me a question that people would want an answer to while I'm sitting down with an interview with you, and here's some dirt on your newspaper. You sat down for the interview, and it's a fair and reasonable question.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's right. It's just, yeah. Okay. Let's keep playing.
I want to talk to you about military strategy.
Well, may I ask then, what is your goal in Venezuela? What do you want to see with the actions that you're taking?
Well, one goal is I want the people of Venezuela to be treated well. I want the people of Venezuela, many of whom live in the United States, to be respected. I mean, they were tremendous to me. They voted for me 94% or something.
You know, there's he goes on to just start rambling about how Venezuela was emptying their prisons and sending people here, and these boats are drug boats, and these at one point she did hit him with something along the lines of it's actually a really tiny percentage of the drugs that come into America come in from Venezuela, and they much more come in from Colombia and Mexico, and you know what his response was? Nothing. He had no response to it at all. It was like, well, I don't know. I don't know about that. They're sending a lot of drugs, and you can see the boat, so you can see the bags on the boats. We're doing it for the people of Venezuela, and for the people of Venezuela who are the people who live in America from Venezuela, and we just really want them to be respected. Really? What? That's why you're not ruling out a ground invasion right now? That's why you're openly threatening advocating for regime change, saying his days are numbered. I mean, I know like Donald Trump, talk about like degrading your goddamn soul and integrity and critical thinking. But, Donald Trump, like, I think he made that term panicans about like that's what people would actually repeat this, like over the war in Iran. They would say like, oh, look at Dave and Candace and Tucker. They're panicking about this war. Like, dude, the commander-in-chief is openly flirting with a war, a completely unnecessary war that is potentially catastrophic. Like, what are you supposed to do with that? Not say this is insane? Not point that out? He doesn't even have a coherent. The people of Venezuela, we're going to do this. And then all the other arguments fall apart under the slightest bit of examination. Like, even when he goes like he goes, okay, they were sending all these refugees from Venezuela. Well, okay. Let's think that through, Rob, for a second. Well, number one, you'd go, okay, sounds like the problem was our border wasn't secure. Sounds like our problem was the central issue that you ran and won on and largely solved. The one great thing that Donald Trump's done in his second term. That border does seem to be pretty secure by all accounts. The number of migrant crossings are way, way, way down. I mean, it's actually unbelievable how drastically far down they are without like really seemingly, Rob, like a major piece of legislation or anything like that, Okay, so in other words, that problem's been solved. Now, I guess the problem that still remains to be solved is deporting all of the ones that are here. But like, okay, that's also supposedly your top domestic priority, although not really. But so like, okay, but then even if you wanted to go on top of that and say, okay, that problem's been solved, but somebody's got to be punished for the crime of letting migrants come over here. Like, first of all, you're up to a very weak justification for a war at that point. But even if you are just purely on consequential grounds, if the problem is, Rob, hear me out on this. If the problem is too many migrants coming from Venezuela, do you really think the solution is therefore to topple the government of Venezuela? Like, might that come with the price tag of more migrants being created? Like, I'm sure you can come up with some perfect scenario where, like, you topple the government and a wonderful government is immediately instituted and life is much better, and so therefore people don't have to flee. Do we have any real-world examples of that? Do we have any real-world examples going in the opposite direction? Like, at best, you'd have to admit, if you're saying that that Maduro's days are numbered, that our goal here is to topple the regime. As Donald Trump has previously said, they offered us everything we want, and we still said, no, we want to topple this regime. Could you at least conceive that it's possible that there's like a period of, I don't know, 6 months, a year where there is some chaos? And might that lead to a big migrant crisis? I mean, we've only seen that every single place that we've done a regime change in the last 30 years. Is it at least possible that it happens here? So now you're proposing a war that is the most reckless policy toward alleviating the pretext for that war. You get my point, Rob? Ugh.
Yeah. It makes, obviously, the Venezuela war is a big sham, of which they will not actually tell us what they're looking for. And here's Donald Trump actually being asked about an interview and, clearly doesn't want to give any direct answers.
It's even, man, let me think about this before I say it out loud, Rob. It's less coherent than the Iran propaganda. Like at least with the Iran propaganda, they had some, I mean, it was, don't get me wrong, there were all types of holes in it, but it went something like Iran is enriching at 60% uranium. Nobody's ever gone up that high without developing a bomb. Donald Trump gave him a deadline, and they didn't come to an agreement with the negotiating table. This is too risky of a nuclear threat in the hands of these radicals. Now, okay, there's a million goddamn holes in that, which I think I spent a lot of times poking them, but at least there was something. And during that war, Rob, I was talking about how this is crazy because they don't even have a pretext for this war like they did for the other ones, like they haven't even laid a decent, this is nothing, like there's some boats with drugs. And he sent the migrants intentionally. Trust me on all of this. They've never presented like a piece of evidence. Like, look, even with like the like Iran was actually enriching up to 60%. Now, whatever, that didn't mean we needed to start bombing them, but they were enriching, and we had IAEA reports that said so. You know what I'm saying? Like they have shown us no evidence that these are drug boats. They've shown us no evidence that the government of Venezuela was in on the migrant crisis. Like, they haven't showed us any of this. He just says they emptied the prisons and sent them here. Like, okay. And as I just pointed out, like that still would still defeat the purpose of starting a war.
Well, if you want to talk about incoherent statements, I think he said something about he wants things to be better for Venezuelans, including the ones living in the U.S., that they should have more respect. I think he said that. And if you want to talk about undermining that, it's saying that Venezuela dumped out all of its criminal population and crazies into the United States of America. I can't imagine that helps your average Venezuelan who lives here, nor do I really think the topic of Venezuelan respect amongst migrants in our country should be a major geopolitical factor.
Yeah, and just the whole
Maybe I didn't even catch that line right, but I think that's what he said.
Yeah, something like that. I don't think he even knew what he said. He should play. There should at the end of his clip, you remember that there was that one moment in the debate with Joe Biden in his catastrophic debate where Donald Trump just turned to him and said, "I don't know what he just said, and I don't think he knows what he just said." They should have a hologram of Donald Trump saying that to Donald Trump after his Venezuela answer. That might as well have been a Joe Biden answer. It's just they have absolutely nothing here. They have nothing. And it seems like they're not even making an attempt to try to figure out some way to sell this thing. I don't know. It's very, very bizarre to watch. But again, if Donald Trump wants to tear at his own, I do see people. All right, so people in the chat I see are asking about some of the podcast wars stuff, or at least they're talking about some of it.
Big drama.
Oh my God, it's so much drama week. So much drama amongst I think I know everyone involved in all of it, and I've done many shows with them. Like there's Pierce Morgan. Well, of course, Nick Fuentes went on Pierce Morgan's show, and that was a whole big shit show. And then
will you bring peace to the podcast drama, Dave Smith? Or are you going to pour fuel on the fire and put some characters on blast?
Honestly, okay, I'll say this. It is a weird, there's a weird dynamic that comes in when you get to know all of these people involved, and then also just there's a certain personality aspect to it as well. Like I can be, and I'm not really, when I'm in my calmer moments, I'm not really proud of it, but I can be pretty damn vicious when I'm attacked, but like when people have been nothing but cool and respectful to me, I find it very difficult to like, you know what I mean? Like be personal or attack them. And I just like,
So we're saying neutral? We're neutral in the podcast drama?
Well, no, I mean, I do have some opinions on all of these things. I mean, look, like, with the Piers Morgan, Nick Fuentes thing, I mean, it was, and I like Piers Morgan a lot. And I really think despite what a circus his show can be at times, I actually think he's really built one of the most important kind of platforms right now. It's this weird, it's like this crazy dynamic where it's like it's recess with no teacher. You know what I mean? It's like there's fights that happen there. There's but it's also like where some of the most important debates have happened. Some of the most important moments in like political commentary over the last few years have happened on that show. I mean, dude, General Wesley Clark giving away that the plan to invade or to topple 7 countries went back another decade to 91, and that it came from Paul Wolfowitz's office, and that it was Scowcroft who shot it down, and then it was a study by the Israelis that brought it back to life, and then it was implemented after 9/11. Like, dude, having the 4-star general, like, that was the first time he's ever said that on the record. It was like that happened on Piers Morgan's show, and there's been a bunch of moments like that. I think Piers like fundamentally just misunderstands who Nick Fuentes is and what the moment was, and there was just like he ended up kind of being ridiculous in the thing. And it's funny because like when I had Nick on. And when Tucker had Nick on, more so with Tucker, because that one, was more high profile, although ours did pretty incredible numbers. But people would be like, oh, you're not being hard enough on him, or you're not pushing back or something, or they'd be mad almost a sense that we weren't just being like, hey, let's sit down. Let's do 3 hours of I'm appalled. I would never. You did this, but I would never. And I just think like, okay, so now it's kind of cool that this happened to go, here, guys, now see how it goes that way and see how unproductive and useless this whole thing was. And anytime you get caught, like if you're a journalist, anytime you get caught in an exercise where you're essentially just letting everybody know that you're more virtuous, you're not doing it right. Like that's not actually what you want to do is actually get into that. Like, okay, hey, you say this real provocative thing, but like, what do you mean by, and just like the constant kind of gotcha nature of the whole thing. It was just, you handed Fuentes, I thought, an easy win. And then I don't know. And also it just didn't actually advance anything or actually get into, you know what I mean? Like I just, like if there are things which there's certainly a lot of takes Nick Fuentes has that I don't agree with. We have very different worldviews, but like you almost like sometimes with things like this, you got to start from the end. You got to go, what is the point of this? What do you want to come out of this? For you to expose Nick Fuentes as the guy who he already admits he is? Like, what, you know what I mean? Like, is that the goal? Or is it that you want to go like, okay, hey, look, we're probably not going to agree on everything, but let's talk about, you know what I mean? Like some of these things and how far really are you willing to go here? And you got to at least concede this. Like, I just think that's a more productive way to do it. So I'm not like personally trashing Pierce or anything. I like the guy. I think, and part of this is probably just due to his age. Like there's a part of me that I don't really get. I don't really get Generation Z shit because like I'm not supposed to. I'm a 42-year-old dad. I'm not supposed to know what's up with these 20-year-old kids. But then, people who are like a generation older than me, I think are just that much further removed from it and kind of don't get it. One of the things is that Pierce is constantly doing this thing through the whole show where he's like, you're an anti-Semite, you're a sexist, you're a racist. Look at this thing you said. This was very racist. This was very sexist. This was very anti-Semitic. This was this. And it's almost like you don't realize that at the core of the raison d'etre, the existence of Nick Fuentes is a rejection of that. Like just a it's already by his very nature. The point is, I'm not playing that game. I don't care. Fine. Yes, I'm all of those things. Call me all of those labels. Now, here's why I'm right about it. Like whether you think he's right or not, it's like you can't get him by playing that game. So I just thought it was futile to attempt. Does that make sense?
No, it totally makes sense. I'm not a Fuentes expert. I don't really. I'm willfully ignorant. I'm not paying that much attention. I can't tell you to what extent he comes off a lot more reasonable when he does these guest episodes and he's not actually representing his views, or if they're just views that have been categorized or allocated to him based off of clips. So I don't know what this kid really thinks or stands. I don't know, okay? I watched the interview basically from the Hitler question through like the marriage conversation, which might have been about 20 minutes. And based on what I watched, Fuentes was the victor in the conversation. The gotcha tricks were not working. The old school TV stuff of if it gets away from you, cutting him off and go, well, here's a clip of something you said. And what you were talking about, it's such a Trump quality where he was just like, this whole apparatus of the fake righteous indignation or, hey, Jewish guys offended by me is exactly what has eroded our entire culture and has not allowed people to self-advocate for what they actually believe in. So, no, I refuse to apologize, and I refuse to pretend like these things that you're pretending are more important. And I just thought he represented whatever that opinion is in a way that Piers really couldn't handle.
Yeah, and look, man, the thing about Nick Fuentes is, and again, this is like no matter where you stand on the issues or to what degree you agree or disagree with his views, he's really fucking good at this, man. Like he's really good at, I mean, dude, the thing where when he plays the Fuentes making the Holocaust joke, and then Pierce goes, he goes, why would you think it's okay to joke about the Holocaust? And Nick goes, what, too soon? It's just great. Just a great response. Just undeniably like a fucking hilarious, like immediate retort. Anyway, so, like, I don't know. I thought, honestly, like I kind of thought it was going to go like that when I heard that Pierce was having him on. So I thought that was, it was just that. And also, I think it was like, it seemed to me that, Pierce, which I give Pierce a lot of credit. I think Pierce for like what I said before about his age, for someone his age, he's been like, it's been phenomenal, his ability to keep his finger on the pulse in today's like very changing world. But I think this might have been a little bit of an eye-opening experience for him to see like the way he conducted the interview and the damn near universal way it was received. But like whatever, Pierce is great. Keep having me on your show, please keep letting me fuck up these Zionists on your show. All right, guys, let's take a moment and thank our sponsor for today's show, which is Kalshi. You've seen them all over the place. Kalshi is America's first fully regulated prediction market. It's CFTC approved in all 50 states. You can bet on anything that has a clear outcome. You can bet on all types of political races, the midterm elections, if inflation is going to reach its target goal, all this stuff. And what's really interesting is you can also see where everybody else is betting. So like, for example, you can go see, are people betting that inflation is going to be higher next year? And you can see who thinks that the Dems are going to take the House or the Senate, but you can also see who's actually willing to put up their money on those. Anyway, go check them out. Kalshi.com/Dave. That's KALSHI.com/Dave. That's where you can sign up and trade in the truth, where your gut meets real money. All right, let's get back into the show. Okay, and then I guess the other one, right, was that then there's also like this thing between Tim Pool and Candace Owens, where like, and then there's also like, I guess a beef between Nick Fuentes and Ian Carroll or whatever. All these guys have been arguing, and you know, the split to some degree seems to be over the conspiracies about Charlie Kirk, and kind of what Candace has been doing with all of that. You know, I really, just to say where I am on that issue, I really don't, I haven't moved really. It's from where I've been the whole time. I still, I haven't seen anything that I would look at as like concrete evidence of Israeli involvement in Charlie Kirk's assassination. I haven't seen that. If anyone can like show me that, fine. There was something about like cell phone data in Israel or something like that. But like, you'd have to like really look at those things, man. Like, I don't know if you guys remember, like Dinesh D'Souza, when he did the 2000 Mules documentary, he had to like apologize for a whole portion of that thing where he got it all wrong, just trying to map out cell phone data and where it was. So like, I just don't know. You know, I also, again, like, as I've said before, it's just, there's always an expectation and there's somewhat of a responsibility when you do shows like we do to try to be reading about every single thing and looking into all the details about all of this. But there's just so many major things going on in the world right now. And they're the things I specialize in. And it is goddamn enough of a challenge to be well read on all that shit and keep going, you know what I mean? And like keep learning more on that. And it's just, I have not like done a deep dive into where we are with Charlie Kirk. I haven't seen anything yet that was like a smoking gun, like, oh shit, this whole thing's a big conspiracy. That being said, Kash Patel and the FBI and the Justice Department, they have no credibility. So I understand where people aren't trusting whatever information is being released. There were things that made it look like suspicious what they were doing. That text thread and stuff was suspicious. And certainly I think Candace really laid out, and if nothing else, I think essentially her whole investigative series has been worth it, even if only for revealing how much the goddamn Israel lobby and the Israel government lied their ass off about this whole thing after it happened. And that in itself has been, you know, like very valuable. We've gotten a real insight into what it was like to be Charlie Kirk and run an organization like that, and then also platform voices like me who are very critical of Israel. So that itself has been very interesting. But other than that, I don't really know. I have no goddamn idea. I have no idea who killed Charlie Kirk or what. And I guess we'll see what happens when this Tyler Robinson goes to trial. Maybe we'll get some more information. Who knows? I will say that I thought I saw the clip where Tim Pool was going off on Candace, another person who I like, who's I've been on the show many times. I thought look, it's ridiculous to do what Tim Pool is doing here now, which I see a lot of people doing, which really, really does irk me, because it's I think, a convenient way to distract, whether intentionally or unintentionally, but to distract from the real story, which is what we try to focus on here, Rob, which is the failure of the Trump administration right now. That's like the number one story right now. And the one thing that I kind of pride myself on, I know you do too, Rob, and we pride ourselves together as a show on this, that we always at least try, you're never perfect in this, but we always at least kind of try to like prioritize what the most important thing that's going on right now is. Like if you look back through the history of the show, I think we've done a really good job of doing that. To me, that's kind of the priority right now. It's like how the Trump administration is collapsing, how this is handing the energy back to the Democrats, which are a huge threat to this country, like all of this stuff. So when Tim Pool says, if we lose in the midterms next year, the reason why is because of Candace Owens, because Candace Owens tore this whole thing down. That is just such a cop-out, dude. Like, no, if the reason why the Republicans are going to lose in the midterm next year, or likely to lose in the midterms, is because the Trump administration has failed, just utterly failed to deliver on so many of their key, aside from border security, on everything. They've failed on everything. And so, you know, border security is a big one. Not trying to take that away. But if that makes sense, I just think that's like, you start getting into this thing where it's like, if Trump buries the Epstein files or something like that, or tries to cover up the Epstein scandal, and then people go, oh, all you guys bitching about this are the reason why we're going to lose the midterms. It's like, no, we're going to lose the midterms because he covered up the Epstein scandal. Like that's the issue is the policy. And so similarly, Donald Trump, if we're looking around in a year from now, and Donald Trump has now bombed Yemen and bombed Iran and now bombed Venezuela, and now but the price of groceries is higher than it was under Joe Biden, and the price of your mortgage and your rent is higher than it was under Joe Biden. That's why we're going to lose the midterms, because no one actually cares about any of this shit. So anyway, I guess that was my thought on that. Anything you want to say, Rob?
Yes. I have not followed all of the Candace storyline. Once again, I know about as much about that as I do Nick Fuentes' opinions. I think you and I both looked at the Charlie Kirk situation and said something's not adding up here, and open to ideas of what actually took place there. I'm not friends with Tim Pool, so I think, nor have I done his show, so I think I can put him a little bit more on blast than you can, and feel free to cut me off here if you so please. But he was definitely raging out a little bit over there. And for one, I think pretending like the fractured Republican coalition, as you said, is over the Charlie Kirk thing, I don't believe that to be true. But then he was also making claims that his place had been shot at, that apparently there is no police record of that incident.
That I don't know. I saw the one thing where the guy called the cops and a cop told him there was no record of that. But at the same time, I have no way of knowing. I have no way of knowing that was actually a cop on the other line, and I have no way of knowing that he didn't just get one cop at the police station who said there's no report. So like, I wouldn't be. I don't know is right or not.
Listen, AI is not perfect, but my AI search into it as to whether or not the event likely happened based off of known police records came back as it's unlikely, or was at least an overstatement. Now, the problem with AI is sometimes it gets things very wrong, and you're very confident that you have information because, it just gave you bad information. But then also his claims that Candace has no security and is not facing the same problem as other conservative commentators. That did not sound to me like that was a likely claim of Candace's reality.
Look, dude, Tim. Okay, look, and we're just a little bit over time, and I'm running to do the Tom Woods show, so I gotta wrap up in a second here. But like, no, that's right, exactly. All that's wrong. But look, again, it's just so obvious. It's so insane that anyone could deny this. Like, this is just one of those things that, like, no matter how much we disagree, we should actually all be able to agree on this obvious truth, which is that what is the fracture on the right over? Rob, say it with me now. One word: Israel. Like, that's what the fracture in the right is over. It's over Trump's policy of being the most pro-Israel president while Israel is doing the most fucked up thing it's ever done, and over the Israel lobby's control of American politics. That's what the whole fight's over. There's the split is all of the people who fucking oppose that shit versus all of the people who fucking support that shit. And that's what's going, like, Rob, what is the split between Mark Levin and Tucker Carlson really over? What is the issue between Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens? What is the issue? What is it over? What was the big controversy about Charlie Kirk's event there? What are we going to pretend that that's not what it is? So this is the thing, is that to me, the thing with Tim Pool is that he's been trying to avoid having that conversation or taking a position on it. And this just very conveniently seems to be another way to avoid that. Oh, it's Candace Owens. That's really what led to this split. It's like, okay, even Candace Owens. What is the phenomenon of Candace Owens? Oh, yeah, she got fired from the Daily Wire for telling the truth about Israel. Okay. She went on to have the #1 podcast. Like, what do you think is going on here? All right, look, I gotta wrap up on that one. Rob, you're the man. Go Robbie the Fire, or what's your website now? RobbieTheFire.com.
Please check out the Run Your Mouth podcast. If you just type Robbie the Fire, all one word on YouTube, you can find my YouTube channel. Going to be starting to post some podcast clips, stand-up clips and other stuff coming up shortly. And then if you go to robbernsteincomedy.com, you can get all my live dates.
All right. Comic Dave Smith, if you want to come see me and Rob out on the road, back out on the
Key
road
West,
in January.
Philadelphia,
Philly,
Portland.
Philadelphia. All right. Thanks for listening, guys. Catch you next time. Peace.